Hi, I'm Victor Lambs, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Victor.
And Jeff Haecker. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Victor.
And today we are discussing the 12th episode of Season 8 of Stargate SG1, Prometheus Unbound. Not the poem by Shelley, was it? I don't know. It's the episode of Stargate by Damian Kindler. And in this episode, Stargate SG1, Prometheus Unbound, Dr. Daniel Jackson and Brigadier General Jack O'Neill engage in a heated argument about Daniel's participation in the upcoming mission to Atlantis. O'Neill insists that Daniel remain on Earth, but Lieutenant General George S. Hammond surprises them by announcing his own involvement in the mission and the need for Daniel's expertise. As the Prometheus sets out, Daniel meets Dr. Lindsay Novak, who previously declined the opportunity to join the first Atlantis mission. The crew receives a distress signal from a suspicious Alkesh ship, prompting SG3 under Colonel Reynolds to investigate. A cunning Kull warrior infiltrates the Prometheus, incapacitating the crew and hijacking the ship. Daniel awakens to find himself tied up by Vala Mal Doran, who reveals her true identity as the Kull warrior. She attempts to extract the Prometheus command codes from Daniel, but he manages to break free and regain control of the situation. However, Vala's programming prevents him from accessing the navigational controls, and the ship jumps into hyperspace. Upon reaching their destination, Daniel discovers that Vala's plan to trade Prometheus for the refined Naquita is a ruse. As they attempt to escape, the Prometheus sustains heavy damage from enemy fire. With the help of the Prometheus crew who have commandeered the Alkesh, they manage to repel the attackers and plan to return to Earth for repairs. However, Vala's escape at the end of the episode leaves her future on the show uncertain. What did you think of this episode, Lisa?
Okay, I kept a straight face. Gosh, Donis Davis.
Yeah.
Love General Hammond. That is my number one. We get to see him, commanding the ship, taking Jack's chair, just love Donis Davis. I like the plot. I like that we're in space. I miss Teal'c and Sam. Vala. Whew. I really thought going back that and watching this again that maybe I just was, I don't know, maybe my 20-something-year-old self just didn't get it, but no, I still don't like Vala. Sorry. There are parts of it I really like. I think what they were trying to go for, but she's just so confusing and over the top. And then so many kind of, we'll say, sexual references with Daniel Jackson and the back and forth. And it was almost farcical to me in some points. But yay to Novak and Hammond and everyone else.
What did you think of this episode, Jeff?
So I do really like this one, and I have to disagree with you, Lisa. I do like Vala as a character, both in this and when we see her in the future. But it was a fun action one. You get some cool space action. You get Daniel. The banter between Daniel and Vala is great. And then unfortunately we don't see the rest of the team. But of course, like you said, we get General Hammond back, and I could be wrong, but I think this is one of his last. I know he's in the finale, but he's not in too many more after this season. I think he might have like a small role in season 9 or 10. So this is kind of his last main timeline role, I think. I could be mistaken there. So it was great to see him and seeing him taking Jack's chair, literally taking the chair back to Washington with him, and yeah, just great seeing him. And Lindsay Novak was fun. Had the hiccups in space and couldn't get rid of them. And we'll see her again as well. So yeah, I really enjoy this one. And I think this is the first, they don't call them the Lucian Alliance, but I think these are meant to kind of be the Lucian Alliance, or at least like the proto Lucian Alliance that we'll see, and who kind of becomes a kind of mini boss group in seasons 9 and 10. So, but yeah, overall, I do really like this one.
Yeah, I did not like this one when I first saw it 20 years ago, and I didn't like it again when I watched it earlier this week, but then I watched it with a commentary, and I think I'm kind of coming around on it now. And that's for a couple of reasons. This was intended to be kind of a bottle episode, just using existing sets, a cost-cutting episode. They wrote it and filmed it with a second unit, which basically lets them, I didn't know this, but get away with a lot more because there's a lot less scrutiny on what the second unit is doing while the first unit is out filming. So the first unit was out filming Gemini, which is why we didn't see Daniel in that episode. And the second unit was just basically out having fun making this episode. You know, Damian Kindler wrote it, Andy Makita directed it. You know, they cast Claudia Black in the role of Vala, and Robert C. Cooper, after reading the script, said, "Oh, this is great," and wrote like he did a kind of a comedy. He rewrote it as basically like a comedy episode and took it to like really far extremes with like Vala and Daniel, and they kind of had to pull him back. But at that point, they were like, "Oh, we got to like increase the FX budget. We got to have lots of ship to ship combat and stuff." Whereas like this would have had no effect shots originally, just because it was written as like a cheap, you know, one-off episode. Mm-hmm. So that kind of puts it in perspective for me that they were having fun. They were doing something different. And I kind of need to separate my feelings for what happens with the Vala character later on from what happens in this episode. Because while they were filming this episode, they were like, "Oh, we have to hire, you know, this actress for the show." And so after this, they wrote the beginning of season 9 as a 6-episode arc. I don't think they had it in mind that they were going to bring her back as a full-time cast member. And I think bringing her back as a full-time cast member was a mistake.
A little much.
To the character. I love Claudia Black as an actress. I love Farscape. But it's kind of, imagine like the bad version of Rodney McKay, who is just constantly hitting on Samantha Carter, and then bringing that version of Rodney McKay back as a like every week cast member, and all he does is hit on Samantha Carter. Something about the way Vala is written is very like male, not necessarily male fantasy, but very male writerly of female characters. And
I'm agreeing with you.
Men obviously can write female characters, but I don't know. So, but I think Claudia Black, from what she said on the commentary, and we'll get into this, brought a lot of herself to the character too, and had some, you know, she wanted to play a more comedic role after being basically, you know, the robot. She wasn't a robot, but she was, you know, a peacekeeper, very, you know, professional in Farscape and stuff. So she wanted to do something a little more fun. And boy, did they do that in this episode. But some of the comedy actually works, which is I like. Yeah.
And I do generally like their banter. You know what I mean? There's just parts of it that it's just, it gets kind of old or over the top, a little over the top. I guess that's the way to say it. And I'm just like, oh, come on, please. You know, like.
A little Vala does go a long way.
Yes.
I don't know. I still like her as a character, even, and I know y'all joked about season 9 and 10. I do enjoy those, not as much as, you know, this as the earlier kind of era of Stargate, but I do like those. So, you know, I don't know. But it was fun seeing her introduction here, and because you see the Cold Warrior invading the Prometheus, and you're like, oh, and everyone's freaking out because, like, wait, this is Anubis back? Is what's going on? Is he back again? And you kind of don't know until the warrior starts talking, and then eventually says, "I need you to take your clothes off," but it's the modulated voice, so you don't know what's about to happen.
Very attractive. Yeah. Yeah. That part was very funny because you have to watch it with the eyes, like you don't know that it's Vala under there, and all of a sudden the Call Warrior is coming on to Daniel, and Daniel's reaction. I do like Michael Shank's reaction, although this is kind of the beginning or a little after the beginning of Goofy Daniel, where he just has the extreme comedic like facial reactions and stuff, and it just takes Stargate in like a different direction than it's you know been before. It's just Michael Shank's mugging, like doing these comedic takes not to the camera necessarily, but you know,
for the camera. I did feel that way. It doesn't, you know, it just doesn't feel like Daniel. It felt like, and you don't have Teal'c or Jack there or Carter or anybody else. It's just Daniel and Vala for the most part, and he's not being himself. He's kind of just it's like they're playing with each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, ah. But I kept watching because, there's a lot of Hammond and Novak, and I really like the premise. You know what I mean? Like, there's a distress call. What? Should we answer it? Yes. And then, you know what I mean? I like that. And then they're locked out of their own ship, and I like the premise a lot.
Yeah. And they did mention in the commentary that that was something they were going for. It's like you're in space now, and it's this whole big universe happening, that you don't know the rules of. And yes, if you go to answer a distress call, someone will try to steal your ship.
Yeah. Okay. One thing we haven't mentioned yet. Walter is who you take to, I don't know what you call it, drive the ship or arm weapons, or what did he do? Like,
Walter. Well, he wasn't he flying it in the Lost City? He was at the helm of the Prometheus. So yeah, I guess in his off time he's playing the flight sim, doing the Air Force training for flying a ship.
F303 or X303.
But it was funny at the end. One of my notes was, you see him just when Hammond's like, fire away or whatever he says, you see this Walter has this little smile, like he's like, I get to do something for a change.
Yeah.
He's normally just the guy that opens the gate or opens the iris and closes the iris and dials.
And remember, he says he kind of changes it up a little sometimes, like Chevron 1, engaged,
Well, I know that, so he and Ellie Harvey, who plays Dr. Lindsay Novak in this, and we'll get to that. She's also a comedian, just like Gary Jones is a comedian. And I think between the two of them, they've hosted maybe the Leo Awards or one of the Canadian awards shows together. So they're both comedians. Some of the comedy seems a little forced. I do like Dr. Novak, but they really lay it on thick with her too, with the constant hiccuping. And then we get Colonel Reynolds in this too, and we get like the weird moment where he might have to give mouth to mouth like resuscitation to like General Hammond, and he's like, no, he's an old man. I'm not going to give him mouth to mouth. You're like, really? Like, he's a general in the Air Force, and
if he's dying?
Yeah. It's the weird, I mean, it was, there was a name for the trope, and it was called like gay panic, where like two characters might have to do, like two male characters might have to do something that people would think that they would be, homosexual. And there was, but like that era of comedy ended in like 1986, so it's weird to see it. Yeah, it's weird to see it in like a 2005 show. But, and then, but I guess it's cool to see Colonel Reynolds do some comedy or something. It's just a really weird, like one-off comedy episode kind of. I know Star Trek would do this sometimes too, where, oh, Quark's a woman now, and isn't that funny, type thing. But
yeah, I guess that's my overall issue with it. Besides, I really, Vala, it just did not grow on me, is that it does feel a little out of place. And maybe that's it. It's the over the top humor. Because I liked Dr. Novak a lot, but the beginning where she's screwing up her face so much and like the hiccups are such a thing, and you're like, really? But then she comes through in the end, and she's like saves the day and is amazing. So, and then suddenly her hiccups are gone. It happens.
Yeah, I was joking on the Discord because at first you see her when she first shows up. She's kind of almost has like that antagonist. Like, how do we know Atlantis is still alive? Because the whole thing is they haven't heard from Atlantis yet, so they want to go check on them. And so she's like, how do we even know they're alive? And almost kind of setting up that she's going to be this mean jerk character. But then she's super nice and it kind of redeems it. But I was joking, like her and Kavanaugh should get married and have kids. And they'd be
I wouldn't wish Kavanaugh on anybody.
Yeah. But they do pair her with a certain Asgard coming up on Atlantis, which is really good comedy duo there. But yeah, so we have comedy going on here, and I think a lot of this too is, and then it's juxtaposed with like some of the best like effects work and ship to ship combat like we've ever seen on the show, which again they added in later once they realized they kind of had something with this episode. So maybe it would have worked as like a smaller, like this is just our comedy episode and it's just kind of a farce on, two different ships. Because I did like what they did with the ring transporters where Vala is like dragging everybody into the ring transporter to, non-lethally get them onto the Alcash. And then later on, we have various things where Hammond has to go over to there's another Gould ship that's disabled. He has to get the crystals and, he throws the crystals into the ring transporter and then the crystals disappear and Lieutenant Reynolds is there to drag him. And so they do some cool things with the ring transporters in this, kind of like one of the, I don't know if it's like revolving doors, like farce where, characters are constantly walking in and off the stage and only we're using ring transporters this time. So I think that works, but it's just, when it's paired up with such broad comedy, which I appreciate. I appreciate that they were having fun.
No fun in Stargate.
No, I like the fun. It's just
it just, you're right. It kind of just felt out of place to me. Maybe,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what would have, I watched it, so.
Yeah. I watched it twice. Yeah. So, but, and there are some really good moments. So apparently Claudia Black, she read the script, took the job. She filmed this in 3 days after being like massively jet lagged. This was like right after her honeymoon and stuff. She had just finished like filming the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries for Farscape. And she met Michael Shanks and said, I'm not familiar with the show. I don't know how your interactions have been with the other female characters, that you've interacted with. And he's like, well, basically it's Stargate. So everybody we fall in love with dies. And she's like, what, like, have you not been able to bring to your role with a female character that you would like to bring to a role? And then I can help you bring that out. And Michael Shanks was like so flabbergasted because like a female guest star had never said that to him. Like, what can I as a female guest star do for you as the main cast member? And so it's clear that they have really good chemistry in this episode. The fight sequence between the two of them, that I think works really well as a comedy bit. And I guess they had to fight really hard to get that in because it apparently was even longer. They cut some of it out, but I think it's one of the best parts of the episode where they're just having this really goofy, almost like Roddy Piper, Keith David fight from They Live, where they're just like, like the most inelegant fight. And the way it's filmed and edited is it's not like, quick cuts, like quick bam. It's just like, it shows that they're just like, don't know what they're doing. They're pulling each other's hair. They're trying to headbutt each other. Daniel gets hit in the groin with a, thankfully, rubber fire extinguisher, prop fire extinguisher. And, but yeah, that part I thought, I like that part.
Yeah, it was funny seeing her so like untrained as a fighter, just because I feel like in the later season, even before she kind of officially joins SG1 and she's just kind of there, she's been, because she does tell her story that she was the host for, was it Satesh or was it a different, one of the Gould anyway.
Yeah.
But she was the host and the Tok'ra saved her. And so she does have kind of that tragic backstory, which is in this episode, you don't know if she's telling the truth or not. Cause she's a very kind of shifty character and, you never know what she's saying is true, but which we do find out it is, but it was kind of funny seeing her in this more comedic fight. Cause she's a pretty skilled fighter and, can take care of herself, later on, even before she's kind of fully trained in the military with SG1. But yeah, seeing Daniel just throw her over her shoulder when they're like, we got to get to the bridge and, do whatever they had to do.
Yeah.
It is a goofy episode, but it's fun. It's nice to be able to laugh at, a sci-fi episode. Cause nowadays a lot of it's so dark and serious.
Everything's so dark and gritty and
I don't want to ding it for being funny. Yeah.
No. I like that they did something really smart here, which was, they don't know each other. Vala had never heard of SG1. She doesn't know who any of these people are, but she really figures out Daniel super fast.
Yeah.
She gives him her background, which it turns out to be true. That she was a host to a Gould. And the Tok'ra saved her, and then all this stuff happened. But then, the last of her people, and she's got to go rescue them. And it's like she had Daniel pegged for bleeding heart of like, okay, we got to go save all the people. So I do love where he's got her locked up in the brig and he goes down to meet the people that he thinks he's saving. And turns out they're trading arms for ships and, or Nakoda and, all this stuff. And he's like, oh, poor Daniel. Like,
yeah.
Well, we didn't have O'Neill or Carter there to say, hey, Daniel, remember the last time this happened?
But I do love that they have her on the camera going, don't go out there.
Yeah.
She doesn't say she was lying, but so I do like that. I thought that was a really nice, they did have good chemistry, the way that they worked back and forth.
And I do like how we kind of get a surrogate SG1 with General Hammond, Reynolds, and Dr. Novak. And then even Walter, the four of them are kind of like Bizarro World SG1,
Yes.
And so I do appreciate that. And I thought it would be cool to just see like if we had gotten the four of them paired up again at some point, but like the further adventures of like, General Hammond and SG-14 or whatever they are.
Quirky little band of misfits.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, you talk about the A plot and the B plot, and the four of them, for me, like that B plot was so entertaining because we've talked about that often, how you don't get a lot of the other characters. You get SG-1, but you don't get a lot of the supporting characters. And so watching the four of them, like, they weren't on a mission, but like, we're on a mission to save the, and like,
they do save the day because like Daniel basically almost gets the Prometheus destroyed because he's attacked by the Gould or Camulus's fleet or whatever it is. And he's like out of weapons, has no shields. And then all of a sudden, the Alkesh commanded by George Hammond shows up and like takes out an entire Gould fleet.
I felt like this was Daniel Jackson, like season 2 or 3. Not Daniel Jackson season 8. Back to the clueless, wide-eyed, innocent. Everyone's telling the truth, and everyone's a really good person. And
he's just he just wanted to get to Atlantis. He kind of reverted to
badly
being a little boy, and he still can't get there again. I don't know how many attempts on the Prometheus or whatever this was to get to Atlantis for him.
Yeah.
Or it's just been a while since he's had a girlfriend, and she like for the Alkesh warrior or whatever saying like, you're cute or whatever, and he's like, oh, it's a woman, okay. Like, it's weird, but okay.
So was this Camulus because I thought Camulus was taken captive by Baal already at this point in the season.
Yeah, because Daniel does mention that Camulus is kind of out of the picture. Yeah. So, but maybe I don't know if it could have been, you're right, a different fleet, or could have been the Lucian Alliance.
Yeah, I thought it was just like I forget the name of those aliens, because we'll see, it may even be one of those, but we'll see that species again in the later seasons as part of the Lucian Alliance. I don't remember if they ever got an official name, but yeah, I took it as these were just it was just like those guys as forces trying to stop them from getting the Prometheus back.
I can't remember either.
It could have been Baal's forces looking for Camulus. Yeah.
I didn't know that the space battle was added after, because it does kind of like, now that I think about it, I could see that just being left out and the episode still functioning pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a point at which like, Daniel Jackson's sitting in the chair and like watching the view screen, and then all of a sudden the Alkesh like comes out like right in front of him, blows him up, and Michael Shanks like doesn't react at all. And it's because like at the time when we were filming it, they were probably saying something like, oh, and this dot, blows up this other little dot or something, They didn't, he didn't know that he was reacting to this big space firefight because that hadn't been, planned in yet. So, yeah, I was saying that now that I know that this was meant as kind of like one of those cheap throwaway episodes that just kind of like snowballed into something bigger, I have a new appreciation for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and at the time, Claudia Black was pretty, especially on Sci-Fi Channel, she was pretty well known. Yeah. Farscape had been going, I don't know for how long. But they had a really, really dedicated following So to have her come over, I'm sure it brought eyeballs. Brought attention to Stargate.
Yeah, it did. I just wish we didn't get the kids in the hall joke about Daniel squishing someone's head. I squish your head.
I think my favorite part was at the end where she, they ring back over or whatever, and she starts arguing. He just reaches over and zats her, and I'm like,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. On the commentary, the writers were trying to explain to Claudia Black like how the Zat guns work.
No.
And she's like, does it just stun them? It's like, no, you can kill them with 2 shots. And then she was like, well, what does 3 shots do? And they're like, we don't talk about that.
You're like, well, in like second season.
And I guess it was Paul Mully who finally spoke up and said that having the bodies just disappear with the 3rd shot was really dumb. And so he stopped doing it.
That's awesome.
Well, speaking of the Zats, like the Daniel wearing the Cold Warrior armor and dissipating the Zats. I said, why didn't they just? I'm sure they had more Cold Warrior armor left over. Why didn't they just harvest that and give that out to their Stargate teams? Or at least give it, have it on hand as if you need, some heavy action. You've got this armor, but I don't think we really ever see anyone wear that again.
I don't think so. But that was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And his head wasn't covered or anything, but it's still, I guess it doesn't matter where you shoot them, or I don't know.
It's just protected. Yeah. And we get the obligatory Star Wars joke with his name being Han Solo. And
oh, yes. That was good. Yeah.
But so, and then Vala at the end steals the Alkesh, I presume, after bringing everybody back to the Prometheus, which was nice, and takes off. And we won't see her until, I think, the beginning of next season, unless she comes back beforehand.
No, I think the first time we see her is the season 9 premiere.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's back.
Yeah.
And you're right. I like how you related it to Rodney in Atlanta, Stargate, SG1, and then Atlantis. Because when we watched those episodes when Rodney McKay first came on board in SG1, it was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how horrible he was.
Yeah.
But then they made him one of the most loved characters, in Atlantis. And I really, now that you said that, I'm like, oh, I wish they'd done that with Vala.
Yeah.
Just
can you imagine
a little bit?
Watching Atlantis and Rodney is constantly hitting on Dr. Weir. I mean, you'd want to shoot him with a Zat gun in Minecraft or something, but it's just like, I'll have to watch when we get to season 9 and 10, like the amount that Vala's hitting on Daniel, because I remember it as being nonstop, but it probably isn't. I think it probably like modulates. But I think a lot of it is just kind of, I don't know. We'll see when we get there.
And they do kind of, when we get there, they do kind of give some explanation. It's kind of a defense mechanism of hers, because she was kind of we'll find out, she didn't have a great childhood, and then she was taken captive by a Gould and taken to a host, and then left to fend for herself basically for a while. So I always kind of, I always kind of took it as she's, it's how she's just trying to get by, and she's trying to charm, and it's an influential person will get you, she thinks will get her, keep her alive till the next day, and then, but she does kind of start to grow out of that, especially. So I think she does develop in that. In her relationship with Daniel and the team, she's not as aggressive in that way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that's how she's gotten by in the universe, is by being a good liar and doing what she needs to do to survive. So I can't put my finger on it, what it is that drives me crazy about her, but I generally appreciate her character. Maybe it's just like a step too far for me at times. So, no, who knows? Maybe knowing what happens in 9 and 10, at least for those of us who are, have seen it, I mean, do we have spoilers for 20 shows that aired 20 years ago?
I don't know.
But knowing, what her character goes through in 9 and 10, I guess I'm interested in watching it again because I might have a little more appreciation for the growth, like you said.
Yeah. And my appreciation for Claudia Black as an actress grew with this, just listening to the commentary, because as they're, doing, Hammond and maybe Walter or Danielle are walking through the corridors of the ship, and, what they have to do because they don't have, unlimited corridors is they have to keep looping past this, they're walking in circles, basically, like it's different corridors. And so Claudia Black was like, so you just walk up and down the same corridor. So you're Doctor Whoing here. And just, if you've ever watched classic Doctor Who, that they go up and down the same corridor, sometimes for an entire 22-minute episode. Gosh. And so I just appreciated that she referred to that practice as Doctor Whoing, because that's what they do.
Yeah. And I realized, I guess it was last year, Claudia Black has such a distinctive voice, and I absolutely love it, that she's in Ahsoka. But
I haven't seen that.
She's fully makeup. I mean, so it was funny because we were watching it and I heard her voice and I'm like, that's Claudia Black. And so then I have to go to IMDb and make sure I'm right, of course. And, but it was so cool to catch her in these other things that are, super popular things that are going on still in the sci-fi world.
Yeah, I didn't, when Ahsoka was out, I didn't recognize her, it sounded familiar, and then when I later looked it up and saw it was Claudia Black, I was like, oh, of course, now that I know it, I heard it, because she's covered up in a lot of makeup, so you can't quite, tell just from her appearance, but yeah, her voice definitely does, once you know, it's hard to unhear, so.
Excellent. Any other thoughts about this episode?
I just liked at the beginning, just to start off with the comedy beat, Daniel was saying, we missed you, sir, and saying you're welcome back anytime, because Jack was kind of saying, you can have your chair back, and Daniel's like, yes, you can have it back. He's just going to get, ribbing Jack a little bit that way.
Yeah. And the fact that he's actually going to take the literal chair back with him to Washington, D.C.
It was nice to see him and have a little sense of humor.
Yeah.
And basically say that he can do whatever he wants.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's going to command the Prometheus. I love that. What about foreign titles? Do we
did
have any good ones today?
We had some good ones. In French, it was en détresse, which is in distress. So yeah, they're in distress. In Spanish, we got Ataqua al Prometeo, or Attack on the Prometheus. And then in German, we get Vala.
Of course we do.
Yeah. So.
Of course, it doesn't give too much away because you're like, what is a Vala?
Yeah. What is?
At least it's not. Vala's the one wearing the coal armor, and she's played by Claudia Black.
Right.
Get ready for broad sexual humor, folks. It's not that bad. Watch it. It's kid appropriate for the most part.
No, it is. I think it's the kind that that couple decades ago that goes over most kids' heads. That kind of thing. So I did my my youngest young adult. She didn't watch this with me, and I don't think she's seen it. When I mentioned, I kind of complained to her. I'm like, it's a Daniel Jackson episode, and Vala, and there's all this, she is hitting on him constantly throughout the episode. And here's my young adult. She's like, oh, really? Maybe I need to go watch this episode because she loves Daniel Jackson. So maybe next week I'll have an update if she watches it.
Good, yeah.
She's she was like, Mom, you're crazy. This was a great episode.
What a full report.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, the last thing is Vala's, she's, we like to joke that everyone can speak English, but she can also read English, and she kind of makes a joke of, I was being a host to a ghoul makes me, better at this kind of stuff, which I don't know if she was just a joke on her part, but I just thought it was funny. It's she immediately knows how to, take over the ship and use these computers that aren't a language she's never read before.
That's a really good point. She says
about primitive technology, right?
Yeah.
Your primitive technology.
And the Prometheus is based on Gould, components too, so there could be some of that happening as well. But yeah, so it would be a pretty short episode if she couldn't figure anything out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who has provided feedback via our YouTube channel or other channels as well. And we had some feedback last week asking about Father Corey, wishing him well. And he has been active on our Discord channel. So if you would like to check in with Father Corey and see how things are going with him, please be sure to check out our Discord. And we'd also like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Stargate: Devin T., Robert O., Jackford K., Denise L., and David J. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows on StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or find our YouTube versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And to find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. And you can email us at stargate@sqpn or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. And we will be back next time with the next episode of Stargate Atlantis, The Defiant One. Until then, Lisa Jones, thank you for joining us and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Victor.
And thank you, Jeff Haecker.
Thanks, Victor.
And once again, I'm Victor Lance. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest. And did you have fun taking off my clothes?
No comment.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?